Hello, how are you? I hope you're fine. Uh, Today I'm going to explain you the document you have in the Google Classroom about the different evolutionary theories. Okay, so here I have made a table comparing the three most important theories about evolution, and this one, which is not evolutionist, this is creationist by Cuvier. Okay, I have included this one here because although this is wrong, because this is fixist, not evolutionist, it has several things that are right, and they are the basis of the current theory about the evolution, which is the punctuated equilibrium. Okay, so we're going to talk about this here, although this is not evolutionist. Okay, so this is catastrophism. This is the theory made by Cuvier. He was a paleontologist who knew a lot about the fossil remains. But he had the problem that he was a creationist. He couldn't explain what these fossils were because he didn't believe in evolution. So he had to try to explain somehow the presence of these fossils from a fixist point of view. So he thought that in the history of the Earth, there was a lot of or some disasters, global disasters that occurred in the Earth, in the whole planet, that killed most of the species. Uh, Most of the species in the planet got extinct because of these disasters. And after these disasters, and once the species were wiped out, then God created them again. And that's why we have the fossil remains of animals that don't live anymore. They don't exist nowadays because they were extinct in one of these disasters. Okay, and once all the living things were disappeared, had disappeared, then God created new ones, and that's why there are fossils in the earth. Okay, they are the remains of the dead living things in a disaster before a new creation, living creation. Okay? So it makes no sense because this is not scientific, but the first part is very good. In fact, it's true that in the history of the Earth, there have been some disasters, global disasters, that have caused a global extinction. Okay, and that's the base of the punctuated equilibrium, as I have said, and I'll explain later. But the important evolutionary theories are these three: Lamarckism by Lamarck, he was French; Darwinism by Darwin, he was English; and then the synthetic theory, which is the current theory, the ones we believe nowadays. So we're going to compare them. Here, you know that Lamarck explained his theory 50 years before Darwin, in 1809, and Darwin in 1859. So this is not true that Darwin is the father of evolution. He's not the one who discovered evolution. Evolution was discovered already 50 years before. Lamarck gave a scientific explanation of evolution 50 years before. So Darwin is not the father of the evolution. He is the one that gave a consistent explanation about evolution, but not the one who discovered that evolution occurred. Okay? So both of them are gradualist. It means that they thought that the evolution was slow and continuous. There were a lot of very, very small changes during the years, and then the species were changing slowly until they got the species we have nowadays. The difference between them is that Lamarck thought that the changes were determined by the environment. So the environment decided what changes the living things should have. For example, in the case of the giraffe, there were uh, herbivores with small necks, with short necks, who fed on the grass and the small brushes. And once these brush and small brushes ran out, then they had to reach the leaves from the trees, and they couldn't. So they had to try to stretch the neck in order to get these leaves from the trees. This is the law of use and disuse. With this law, Lamarck says that when an animal is using an organ, this organ will grow, will be will be developed more. So, as the giraffes had to stretch the neck to get their leaves, they were growing their necks. So the offspring had longer necks, and as the offspring were appearing in the time, then longer and longer necks appeared in this animal, in these herbivores. So finally, they got to the giraffe, to the current giraffe with the long neck. So it was because of the environment, and the environment made them use the neck, and then the neck grew. This is the explanation that Lamarck gives, and it requires the inheritance of the acquired traits. It means that if we get one new trait during our life, we will pass this trait to the offspring. Nowadays, we know that it doesn't make any sense. If I change the color of my hair, for example, into red, my sons will not be red-haired. No, this is something that I have acquired in my life, but I cannot transmit it to my offspring. Okay? So that's a mistake in the Lamarckism. Uh, on the other hand, Darwin explained it in a different way. He said that the changes were random, so anything could change, not only the length of the neck. For example, there could be, well, these herbivores with short necks feeding on the grass and brushes. They had the offspring, and some of these individuals in the offspring had new traits, had born with new traits. For example, some had the long neck, some had horns, or whatever. Any change is possible because this is random. And then the natural selection is the one that decides which of these different traits is appropriate for the environment. So it makes the survival of the fittest. The fittest is the one that can take advantage better to the conditions of the environment. So in the case of the giraffes, for example, the ones that were born with the longer necks, they could reach the leaves from the trees and they survive. The ones with the short neck die because they cannot reach the leaves, and the ones with the long neck, they survive. So they are the fittest, the ones that fit better in the environment. So they survive while the short-necked ones die. That's what natural selection does. So there is a fight for survival. This is competition. So according to Darwin, he thought that animals compete, or living things compete for a resource, and the ones that fit better with the environment will will be successful in this fight. They will be selected by the natural selection, and they will survive. So the offspring will have this new trait that made them win. Okay, so finally we have the same. We have the giraffes with the long neck, but they have got this long neck in different ways, determined by the environment or randomly and selected later by the nature. Okay, Darwin said this 50 years after Lamarck, and 50 years after Darwin, at the beginning of the 20th century, this is when the new knowledge about genetics appeared. This is when they rediscovered Mendel's laws, and they studied to understand how the traits could be transmitted, could be inherited. So they just included this new knowledge about genetics to the Darwinist theory. Okay, and this was called the synthetic theory. Synthetic because it synthesizes the previous theories. So here they realized that the random changes that Darwin predicted, they were caused because of punctual mutations in the DNA. Now we know the DNA, we know that it can change. We have studied this in class. So the DNA can change through mutations. So when the DNA is changed, new traits appear. Okay, so this should be the random changes that Darwin said. And they also say that natural selection doesn't act on individuals as Darwin thought. He thought that natural selection kills the animals that doesn't fit well to the environment and makes survive to the ones that fit. But what they think now is that natural selection acts on populations. If we have a population of giraffes with long neck, they will survive, and a population with giraffes with short neck, they will not survive, they will die. Okay, so it's the same, but acting on populations, not on individuals. And then, in the second half of the 20th century, the science and the biology was getting new knowledge, and more things were changed. Maybe the most important one is the punctuated equilibrium by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge. This was in 1973, and they realized that the evolution was not gradualist. It was not gradual. It was not slow and continuous. They realized that during the history of the Earth, the animals were very constant. I mean, not the animals, the living things were constant. They didn't change too much. Maybe they changed a little bit to be similar species, but not very different. So evolution didn't occur for the for the time that the Earth was growing from the beginning of the Earth until nowadays. There has not been a lot of evolution, but only in specific moments. There are specific moments when the evolution acts very quickly and new species are made in very short periods of time, while in very long periods of time nothing has happened. Okay, so the evolution is not gradual, this is not linear during all the time of the Earth, but this is punctual. It means that there's no evolution for a very, very long period of time, and then suddenly everything evolves and new species appear. This is related to the catastrophism by Cuvier. This is true that there were global disasters in the history of the Earth that killed most of the species on the Earth. So, what Stephen Jay Gould and Eldredge say is that after these disasters, there is not a new divine creation. There is a new evolution, an increase in the rhythm of the evolution. When all the species disappear, the species that have survived, they can evolve very quickly because they don't have competence. So there are very, very fast, very quick periods of evolution in punctual moments in the history of the Earth, and all the rest is very constant without evolution. Okay? Then we have the endosymbiosis by Lynn Margulis. She explained how the eukaryotic cells appeared from the prokaryotic. You know that one heterotrophic prokaryotic cell ate another bacteria that was able to breathe oxygen and then didn't kill it. They um, they coexisted one inside the other with a symbiotic relationship in which the small bacteria became the mitochondrion. Okay, It became an organelle for the bigger cell. And then it happened the same with the chloroplast. One of these cells ate another bacterium that was able to do the photosynthesis, to get glucose using the sunlight. So instead of killing or eating this cell, they established a new symbiosis through which this cell became the chloroplast. So this is how both the animal and plant cells were created, appeared in the evolution. And it was through cooperation, no, not through competition, as Darwin said. In fact, cooperation is much more important in evolution than competition. Living things evolve much more when they help each other than when they compete. Then we have the neutralism. This is a theory by Kimura. She's a Japanese woman who realized that what we have seen in class, if you remember the mutations, we saw that most of the mutations were neutral. They were not, they didn't have benefits or problems to the cell or to the individual because they did nothing. Maybe, if you remember, maybe when an nitrogenous base is changed in the DNA, maybe the amino acid that it makes doesn't change because of the genetic code, you remember? So sometimes nothing changes, although there is a mutation. And or maybe the amino acid is not very important in the structure of the protein, or maybe the protein is not very important in a function of the body. So in most of the times, mutations are neutral. They don't cause benefits or problems to the individual. So it means that punctual mutations cannot be the cause of changing in evolution. There must be something different, like the Hox genes. The Hox genes are genes that are not transcribed to make proteins. These are genes that they help the other genes to express. They control the expression of the genes. They are not expressed themselves, but they can control the expression of the others. So if we change these genes, we are changing the expression of a lot of other genes. So we are amplifying the effect of the mutation. So mutations on these Hox genes can make bigger changes than punctual mutations. And these Hox genes go in groups. They don't work alone. They go in groups. So when they mutate, when they change a group of these genes. So they are altering the expression of a lot of genes. So this can create new traits, much more than punctual mutations. Okay. So these are the differences and the relationship between the three main evolutionary theories. Okay. Even the non-evolutionary theory by Cuvier, catastrophism, that, as I have said, was very important in the current theory, which is the synthetic theory with the punctuated equilibrium. This is based on the Cuvier's catastrophism. Okay, so here you have a drawing about the punctuated equilibrium, in which you see the two trees, the two diagrams of the evolution according to the gradualism and to the punctuated equilibrium. So here we see that from the original butterfly to the descent, we have a lot of middle species which are just they present small changes until we get the current ones. But in the punctuated equilibrium, we don't have these middle species. We have the original one and the final ones, but there's nothing in the middle because the change have been sudden. It hasn't been slowly in a lot of time with tiny changes one over the other until we get the final one. Here we have got the final one in one step, in only one step, and then we already have it. So this is sudden here, not gradual like here. Okay. And finally, here you have the link of a video that I want you to see. I want you to watch this video, and I want you to write a brief report about what is said in this video. This video is about the punctuated equilibrium. So I want you to explain punctuated equilibrium basing your report on this video. Okay, I will put it in the classroom as a new task, and I want you to do it in a Word document and upload it in the Google Classroom. Okay, so see you in the next video. Bye bye.